Privet, everyone, and welcome to Friday, May 31st, 2024. I'm Joe Pratt. Keeping you informed of what's happening in the world. Happy birthday to those of you born today. If it's your birthday, you share a birthday with Walt Whitman, Clint Eastwood, Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul, and Mary, Joe Namath, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, Brooke Shields, and Colin Farrell. In the aftermath of the Trump verdict of guilty yesterday, Trump addressed the media, and protests for and against Trump and for and against the verdict went on outside Trump Tower. The protests have been relatively peaceful outside Trump Tower, with both sides yelling things, but no reports of damage to property or physical fighting leading to arrests. Trump, in his address to the media, said, "We're living in a fascist state." The judge was conflicted. As far as the trial itself, it was very unfair. We weren't allowed to use our election expert under any circumstances. It was a rigged trial. We wanted a venue change where we could have a fair trial, but didn't get it. As we mentioned yesterday, Trump's team will appeal the verdict to the next level. Biden made a public statement saying, quote, "It's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this is rigged just because they don't like the verdict," unquote. Israel's forces are in central Rafah now and are expanding their reach as they continue to root out Hamas fighters and ammunitions. Israel said it uncovered rocket launchers and smuggling tunnels and dismantled weapons in a storage facility. Russia and Ukraine exchanged POWs for the first time in 3 months. Each side sent back 75 POWs, and they also handed over the bodies of fallen soldiers. This is the 52nd time that two sides have swapped prisoners. The United Nations Chief of Refugees had some harsh words for the UN Security Council, saying that they haven't used their voice to try and resolve conflicts according to international humanitarian law and the laws of war. He cited several examples. First of all, Russia invading its smaller neighbor Ukraine, but the Council being afraid that Moscow would veto any resolution, and Russia being afraid that Moscow would veto any resolution. And Russia breaking humanitarian law by attacking Ukraine's power grids, houses, and other civilian structures. Israel's mistake in the airstrike that caused a deadly fire at a camp for displaced Palestinians. And in the Congo, where violence between men with guns is so common that no other place on earth is as dangerous for women and children than the east of that country. These are all quotes by the Chief of Refugees at the UN. And finally, places where sex with a child can be bought for less than a cold drink. The new national spelling bee champion is 12-year-old Bruhat Soma from Tampa, Florida. Bruhat received a trophy and more than $50,000 in cash and prizes. Freddie Corbett and Harley Hollingsworth are teenagers, 15 and 16 years old. They were waiting for a train on Saturday night when they noticed a man nearby and heard him say that he intended to end his life. The older man jumped onto the tracks as a train was approaching. Without hesitation, the two teenagers jumped onto the tracks after him and said, "You're not doing that, mate." They helped the man get back onto the platform several seconds before the train arrived. The man kept saying, "You're good lads." They talked with him and calmed him until professional help arrived. Congratulations are in order for Bernie Littman and Marjorie Fiderman of Philadelphia, who got married just a few days ago. They met at the Senior Living Center over 9 years ago. It took them that long to finally tie the knot at the age of 100 and 102. Yasmin Lari of Karachi, Pakistan, is being innovative and resourceful in her attempt to fight homelessness in Pakistan. She has developed an easy-to-assemble bamboo hut that is about 10 feet by 10 feet and can sleep up to 10 people. Yasmin Lawry is Pakistan's first female architect, and she is in her 80s. Her team can make about 8 huts every day to be distributed to people living in dire circumstances. You should pay attention to what's happening in India. Millions are being lifted out of poverty. Poverty is now being defined as, previously poverty had been defined in India, meaning that you made less than $2.50 a day. But now things like education, health, and the standard of living are taken into account. In 2005, the poverty rate in the country of India was at 55%. In 2021, 15 years later, it had fallen to 16%. 415 million people have gotten out of poverty by India's efforts in sustainability, providing skills training to women and youth, increasing services to vulnerable communities, and microloans. Microloans are given to people to start a new business with just a couple $100s, which is enough to get a business started in India. In sports, NBA playoffs, last night the Dallas Mavericks earned a spot in the finals by beating Minnesota by 21 and leaving them, Minnesota, to hope for next year. So it will be Boston and Dallas in the finals. Boston was the number 1 seed in the East, and Dallas was the number 5 seed in the West. In music, the top 5 songs of the week on this date in 1978 was number 5, The Closer I Get to You by Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway. 4 was Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb. 3 was You're the One That I Want by John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. And number 2 was Too Much, Too Little, Too Late by Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams. And number 1 this week in 1978 was With a Little Luck by Paul McCartney and Wings. Stephen van Lankheiser and his 2 young sons, 7 and 5, went on a camping trip in the Australian Outback. After a rain in the area, their SUV got stuck in the mud all the way up to the axles, and they were a long way from any civilization. They rationed what little food they had left and put out plastic containers to gather rainwater to survive. They had packed enough food for 4 days, but after 11 days they began to get worried and hungry and thought they might not survive. A local rancher who heard the news reports about the missing family, went out on his motorbike to try and find them, and he did. The family had to spend some time at the local hospital, but they will make a full recovery. Joe Pratt, be grateful and make it a great day. And if you like the podcast, please take a moment and subscribe and like. That's how we get started in this very competitive arena of podcasts. Thank you.